days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm excited about this one. We're going to be talking about the 49ers 53-man roster on the defensive side of the ball. And there's absolutely been no conversation at all on Twitter about anyone on the 49ers defense. Not at all. There's been a lot of things going on, of course, in 49ers land, but I'm excited to get into this conversation about the team and how some of these players are going to look in 49ers red and gold and what this defense could ultimately look like. I think that's one of the biggest conversations to have, and welcome everyone to chat. Chat is lighting up right now, so you guys, everybody, welcome. And this is one of those episodes that I'm really looking forward to getting into because of some of the players that we're going to be talking about. And one of the things we're going to be talking about right away is the defensive line. I kind of teased it last night that we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the defensive line. We waited for the offensive line, one of the positions that is the most compelling, to see who was going to make the team and talk about what Eric Branch from the San Francisco Chronicle said, and then go ahead and discuss it off of that. And this time, it's going to be about, you know, the defensive side of the ball and the defensive linemen, and that's how we're going to be kicking it off. And what's up, Mark? How's it going? And what's up, Paul? You understand what's going on there? This is about the team, and that's what we're going to talk about. And the defensive linemen, one of the interesting things about what Eric Branch did was he kept 12 defensive linemen. That's right, 12 defensive linemen. I thought 11 was a lot last year, but 12 for what Eric Branch said. And these are the names. We'll go through them. Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Kinla, Drake Jackson, the new rookie, Samson Debucon, or Ebubom, as Gary would say, Kamoko Toure, Jordan Willis, Charles Omenihu, Carrie Hyder, Hassan Ridgeway, Maurice Hurst, Kevin Givens, and rookie Kalia Davis. Those are the 12 guys that he keeps. What he ends up saying, and I know what you're probably thinking, well, who in the heck did he cut? There's only 3 players that he ends up cutting, and then he does, in fact, trade one of those players. He cuts D Ford, which all the rumors coming out are that D Ford potentially is going to get cut post-June 1. That's what's going on there. And then Alex Barrett, of course, he's been spending a lot of time on San Francisco's practice squad. I think his most consistent playing time came in 2020 season with all the injuries, and he didn't look bad, but it's definitely tough to make this defensive line spot. So Alex Barrett is gone, and then of course the undrafted free agent out of Fresno State, Kevin Adkins, also was one of the cuts according to what Eric Branch had. Now, some of the things that I first off am looking at is, number one, the thing that stands out the most is Khalia Davis. Khalia Davis is probably a guy that could end up on the PUP list. So I think that Khalia Davis being on this roster is a little surprising, because I do believe that he's not going to be scheduled for return until late October potentially, and the 49ers have really no motive to make him come back any sooner. This one I don't understand for that much, because him being on this roster doesn't make a lot of sense for the 49ers, because they could stash him on that PUP list if they needed him late in the year, bring him back. But if you don't let this guy sit, rest, recover, redshirt him essentially, and then bring him back next year where he can compete. Because a lot of the defensive linemen we're about to talk about are on one-year deals. And as we go through those, we'll discuss, who's on the last year of their contract and who's going to be back and who's not. So I think that's one of the things to go over. And we know that Nick Bosa, of course, is under contract for 2 more seasons. The 49ers exercised his 5th-year option, to no surprise. He'll be making a little over $16 million in 2023. So Nick Bosa is one of those guys we know we have for 2 years, and they're hopefully going to get him under a contract extension next year. Eric Armstead, of course, making a lot of money, over $20 million to be, a force on the 49ers defensive line. Feel like the defensive line took a step forward, big time, a step forward with Armstead going ahead and moving to the interior, playing defensive tackle. So I think that that's something that's really good for the 49ers, and those 2 guys are staples along this defensive line. And then Javon Kinla, of course, who's been dealing with injuries the last 2 seasons. I thought that he played pretty well as a rookie in 2020, but played significantly more snaps than I think the 49ers ever intended, or that, he was ready to play, because he's a rookie adjusting, to the NFL game. And now he's going to be moving from the 3-tech, which he's primarily been playing, in the NFL and for the 49ers, over to the nose tackle position. And he'll have a little bit of a different role there, but it's something he's not completely against, because he has done it at South Carolina. There's film of him doing it, and he can handle it. And he's just a freak of nature as far as size, speed, aggressiveness. So I do like Javon Kinla being able to play next to Eric Armstead. And then he, of course, Samson Debucon, I'm going to list him next because he's going to be the starter opposite of Nick Bosa. His improvement during the season was very distinct. Everyone could see it. He was getting better and better as the season progressed, and including getting into the playoffs, I thought he did a really, really good job. So I am excited about Debucon's potential this year. So that's something that's going to be fun. And then Paul says Kinlaw got his knee. That's been bugging him since his freshman year of college. Fixed. He should be ready to tear it up. Yeah, hopefully he's going to be ready to go now. And he's been working his butt off to get back, and we'll see what he looks like. And this is the year. This is the year he's going to have to prove it. He's either going to stay healthy, or he's going to play to the potential of how he can play. So I'm excited. And Donald Johnson said, did anyone hear anything on how Gray did so far at OTAs? The only thing we heard really about Gray and OTAs was that he was really fast. And so I'll give you that. Just basically Brandon Newk saying he's fast, but no one really commented too much on Danny Gray. A lot of the 49ers players and coaches were very interesting with how they handle the media, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, in future episodes. But then next up is Drake Jackson, the rookie. Drake Jackson is a shoo-in to be on this roster, so he makes sense here. He's a guy that's going to be a situational pass rusher in year one as he develops into being a dominant 3-down player opposite of Nick Bosa, and a cheap option opposite of Nick Bosa, being pick 61. They're going to have him for 4 years. I mean, you're going to have him for 4 years. The only thing about having Drake Jackson not be a first-round pick, you don't get that 5th-year option like you got with Nick Bosa. So Drake Jackson makes sense. I think, he's a shoo-in. Kamoko Toure, the fact the 49ers spent so much money on him, I do believe Kamoko Toure is going to be on this roster as well. I agree with Eric Branch here. A speed rusher off the edge. Some of the film that he's put up of him doing the figure 8 drills and working the hoops, being able to bend the corner and get on his edges, it's fantastic. You go back and you watch a little bit of his handwork. There can be some improvements there with what he was doing with the Indianapolis Colts. But he's got a lot of potential, and the fact that 49ers could be cutting D Ford means you need that speed rush element. Kamoko Toure would definitely add that, especially while Drake Jackson is continuing to improve, and Jackson could be one of those guys you could slide inside and take over the Arden Key role. Jordan Willis is a guy that he believes will get traded. So Jordan Willis ends up being the odd man out in this situation for Eric Branch, and that Jordan Willis gets traded. I think Jordan Willis would be a trade candidate if other guys beat him out, but I believe there's other guys on this list that could be as well. So we'll talk about them, but Jordan Willis is a guy that often makes an impact when he's on the team. He's very talented, and I feel like he's improved over the 2 years that he's been with San Francisco. So I like Jordan Willis a lot, and I wouldn't count him out from making this football team. I think he would carry a lot of value around the league as a late-round draft pick, but I don't think the 49ers want to move on from him because he's young, and he's a guy with a lot of potential, and you don't want to move on from those guys. So they might end up cutting somebody else or moving somebody else that's a little bit older. Charles Omenihu, that came over from the Houston Texans last year at a middle of the season in a trade, was an absolute bang-up move because the guy's been fantastic. And I thought the move at the time went under the radar. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan go ahead and bring in a player that can help an already stacked defensive line, which I'm sure had a lot of people shaking their heads like, why are we getting another defensive lineman? That's not what we need. We need a cornerback. We need a running back. We need a different position. We need help in these other areas. And the 49ers, stuck to what they do, and they found a lot of value in a defensive lineman that has the potential to play on the outside and the inside. So he could be also tasked with that Arden Key role. We could see an expanded role for Charles Omenihu. So I'm kind of excited about that. I'm excited about Charles Omenihu, and I'm excited about Jordan Willis. And Lou says, too much talent on the D-line, trade Debucon. I just can't get there with you, Lou. I know you want to trade Debucon. You want to save that $6.5 million. I just don't think you trade starting edge rushers in this league, and that's what Debucon is. He proved last year he's a starter opposite Nick Bosa. And in fact, if eventually Drake Jackson could potentially take that spot, But right now, Samson Debucon becomes a young player with a lot of athletic ability and some developing potential. But what he did prove last year was that he can play all three downs. He plays superb against the run. He was able to set the edge, keep his outside arm free, and make tackles on the outside. So I think that Debucon is one of those guys that often gets missed. Go back to some of those playoff games, and you'll see Samson Debucon running down plays on the opposite side of the field, going down the line of scrimmage and attacking these running backs. Those are things that you don't always notice, but those hustle plays don't go unnoticed by Chris Kasarik. So I'm excited about Samson Debucon. So I can't go there with you, Lou. I get what you're doing, but I do enjoy having Debucon, and I think one of these other guys would be, more likely to be moved, including the next guy on the list is Carrie Hyder. Carrie Hyder is a guy that Eric Branch has making the team. And I think this is where me and Eric Branch kind of go our separate ways. I think Carrie Hyder might be an odd man out. I think as you're looking to keep maybe an extra offensive lineman and keeping 9 there, I think Carrie Hyder could get kind of moved out because of Drake Jackson and what he's going to be able to do. So I think Carrie Hyder could be on his way out if he does. If one of these guys don't suffer an injury. He's also 31 years old. Being at that age amongst these young cats who are really doing it at a high level, he's just one of the guys that could be going. So and Lou says, where was he during the regular season? He was getting better, Lou. I mean, that's where Debucon was. He was getting better. He had to completely switch positions. When he was with the Los Angeles Rams, he was playing a 3-4 outside linebacker, which meant he spent time at the line of scrimmage, but he never put his hand in the ground. I mean, one of the first things he said in training camp was he had to learn to not think, not read, and just go. That is a different philosophy and a different thing that you have to get used to. So it's a different mindset, and that's something he had to learn. And he had to get better at his pass rush moves. When he was playing outside linebacker, it was more like a blitz situation for him. There was occasions where he did it in a different way, but I thought the improvement from beginning to end was rapid, and that's really what you're looking for, right? Is the development from beginning to end. And if he doesn't come out and prove it this year, then Lou, you would be right. He maybe didn't get it done in time. But Samson Debucon had a nice year last year, and I thought you came on at the right time. The right time was playoffs. That's what you want. Guys that are going to close it, get it done in the biggest moments. And I felt like Debucon did a very good job. And then next up is Hassan Ridgeway, and I'm in full agreement here. Hassan Ridgeway should make this roster. I believe they brought him in to be behind Javon Kinla at the nose tackle position. He's great against the run, has some ability, in the pass at times, but really this is a first and second down guy, a run stopping option, and a nice rotation piece to have on the inside, and a real improvement over Contavious Street. So if you have a guy that can improve over Contavious Street, you make sure you keep him on the roster, and I believe that's part of the reason the 49ers defensive line could be better than last year is they improved the depth along the way. Not only are they developing in some areas and getting better, but also they brought in guys to add extra depth that are actually better than the depth pieces last year. And Hassan Ridgeway over Contavious Street is a huge upgrade. Street was a guy that's still developing, and I hope he has a good season for New Orleans, except for when they play the Niners. But I really am cheering for Contavious Street, a guy who dealt with a lot of injuries. So I'm hoping that he's going to be able to have a good year and turn his career all the way around. He had 3 sacks. I'm expecting a little bit more from Ridgeway, and I think the 49ers are as well. And then Maurice Hurst. And I think Maurice Hurst is a bubble guy. I'm going to go ahead and agree with Branch that Hurst makes the team because he's a 3-tech with some versatility, but he's also a better pass rusher. So he's going to have the ability to get after the quarterback on all 3 downs, and his lateral quickness was on display last year in training camp as he was really making poor Aaron Banks struggle at times because he was just able to get around him with rapid quickness and using his hands the way you're supposed to. So I do really like Maurice Hurst. I think he has an opportunity to make this team, and I think after the injuries, he has a lot to prove. So he potentially could make this roster. And then, of course, Kevin Givens is the other guy. And I think Kevin Givens will make this team. I think he's one of the ones the 49ers are very comfortable with the development that he's had over the recent years. And I think they're excited about his potential on the inside. And then Lou said, how many do we have on the edge? Well, we've got Nick Bosa, that's 1. We got Drake Jackson, 2. Debucon, 3. Kamoko Ture, 4. Jordan Willis, 5. Charles Omenihu, 6. So 6 guys on the inside would be what I would believe it would be. And then after that, you would have Ridgeway, Hurst, Givens, and Eric Armstead, Javon Kinla on the inside. So 5 on the inside, 6 on the outside, 11 defensive linemen. That is a very solid number right there. And in that situation, the guy on the way out is Carrie Hyder. Whether you cut him or you trade him, it doesn't matter. But he's going to be competing against some really, really good young players, and he might ultimately win. Carrie Hyder is no slouch by any means. Carrie Hyder is a very good football player who produced mightily for the 49ers in 2020. But the 49ers have made a trend towards going towards younger guys. I think Carrie Hyder came in to ensure that they had the right guys, but the additions of Drake Jackson and Kamoko Toure after Carrie Hyder means he could be expendable. So we'll see what happens there. I really struggle to say that because I like Carrie Hyder a lot. I think he's a really good football player, and I think you match him with Chris Kasarik, and it's always good times, right? I think so. I think he does a really good job for Chris Kasarik, and Kasarik would really like it. And what's up, JLE? How's it going? Welcome to chat. And now we're going to get to linebackers, and linebackers could be the easiest of the defensive positions to go over as far as the 53-man roster, because the top three are absolutely fantastic. Now, we do know we got some information regarding Azeez Al-Shire, regarding Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. Both of them are injured. Flanagan-Fowles dealing with knee tendonitis, which normally would not make me nervous, except for I do remember a lot of players last year suffering from knee tendonitis, including Jalen Hurd, and we know how that one really cuts me deep. So I'm hoping that Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles will be ready to go when we get to training camp. I believe he can be. But Azeez Al-Shire had surgery on his shoulder and his knee. They expect him to be back for training camp, but that could slow him a little bit early on. We'll see how he's, if he's back to normal and back to getting after it. But this linebacker core of Fred Warner, of course, Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shire. So we're in full agreement with Eric Branch. Oren Burks and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles are who he ends up going with. Those are the five guys. And let's go through the guys that he cut and see if there's anyone that we believe should be on this roster. Curtis Robinson, Jeremiah Camel, the undrafted free agent out of North Carolina. Segun Olubi, the undrafted free agent. Marcelino McCrary-Ball, who's an interesting one because he's the guy that's translating from safety to linebacker. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But it seems like all those guys could be practice squad potential players. So to me, that list makes sense. I'm in full agreement with Eric Branch with Warner, Greenlaw, Al-Shire, Burks, and Flanagan-Fowles, because Burks and Flanagan-Fowles, and what's up, Shooter? How's it going? Burks and Flanagan-Fowles are excellent special teams players. I mean, just absolutely fantastic. So if you're going to make this roster over those two guys, and they both can run, you're going to have to play at a higher level than them on special teams. Can they do that? I don't know. I watched a lot of the Jeremiah Camel film. I think there are things that he does that are really nice. I like some of the things that he does. I think he's a decent tackler. I think he reads holes pretty well and is able to fill. But I don't know if he's at the level of the other guys yet. I think he could be a developmental guy that 49ers could be excited about in the future. So we'll see. Maybe he'll land on the practice squad, end up with the big squad at some point, because I think I would like to see what he can do in the league. I think he's one of the guys they definitely value. They wanted to bring him in because they definitely prioritize him, giving him $70,000 for a signing bonus. So I do think that they want to bring him in and see what he can do, or $10,000 for signing bonus, $70,000 for a salary. But we'll see how he develops. And now we're getting to cornerbacks. You thought defensive line was going to be one heck of a conversation. Cornerbacks could be a really, really huge conversation because there are some guys that are young, there are some guys that are older, more seasoned veterans, and there's just some really good football players that are on this list. And I want to read who makes the team from Eric Branch and then go over one of the most shocking things that I did not expect to see. So first off, making the team, Tarvarius Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, Ambry Thomas, Deommodore Lenoir, Samuel Womack, and Dante Johnson. What name did you just not hear? Ward, Mosley, Thomas, Lenoir, Womack, Dante Johnson. That's right. He cut Jason Verrett. I was completely shocked after hearing everything that we've heard from Kyle Shanahan, what we heard from John Lynch about Jason Verrett. I was shocked. I could not believe that Eric Branch has the 49ers cutting Jason Verrett. If you told me Jason Verrett wasn't going to be healthy, that he was going to be on the IR, that he wasn't going to be able to perform, something like that, I think that I could believe you. I would understand. But if he's healthy, pure skill level, I just don't think so. I just don't think there's any situation in which Jason Verrett gets beat because of his abilities to play the cornerback position. He's one of the best that can do it. Oh, and Mr. Corey says Lenoir is not making this team. Neither is Barrett. We will disagree for sure on Barrett. And then as we go through this, I'll let you know if I agree with you about Lenoir. And that's the question, JLE. Will JV be healthy? And we know that, Kyle Shanahan discussed Jason Verrett being back in the facility. And the main thing was just making sure he was willing to come back. And he was, and it's been tough on him. I'm sure it's really tough. And I think he's one injury away from retiring. I really do. I can't believe he's came back from so many so far. That just shows his passion and love for the game, which means I'm not going to count him out, because the passion and love to come back and play for a limited amount of money, knowing full well you could get hurt again. I think that this is something we're just going to have to really look at and focus on. But I think Verrett not only can make this roster, I think he can start. I really do. I think he's got a lot of potential. We know Tarvarius Ward is for sure making this team. We know Emmanuel Mosley is for sure making this team. We know Omri Thomas is for sure making this team. I think those four guys are for sure. And then after that, we have a really conversation. And Jay Ellie saying at the nickel, Denard at the nickel. We'll see. That could be. I mean, that's one of the things, right, that Fred Warner kind of said, is that Darqueze Denard was potentially the starting nickel, but he said, I don't know, what do I know? I'm just a player. I'm not a coach. I think that was a little insight, and then you had Kyle Shanahan talking about week 18 and the fact that Denard came in for practice. It wasn't somebody that he was really familiar with, but when he saw him out there after all the guys had COVID, including Dante Johnson and K'Wan Williams, that he was going to play the nickel, and they were okay rolling with Darqueze Denard in the nickel situation. So I think that's one of the things to keep in mind. Of course, Denard gets cut by Branch. Tariq Castro-Fields gets cut. Kadar Holloman and Quantrez Knight are guys that Eric Branch has the 49ers cutting. One of the questions I have, first off, is Diameter Lenoir. And we've seen that kind of, Mr. Corey said Diameter Lenoir's not making this team. I think Diameter Lenoir might be on the bubble, and I think Dante Johnson is too. Even though Dante Johnson has showed a lot of versatility in this league, I don't think it's a guarantee that he makes this team. Denard was a legit first-round pick. He has a lot of ability and physical traits that I'm sure the Niners are going to like. You do like the fact that Dante Johnson can play a multitude of positions. He can play in the nickel. He can play outside. I don't know if you want him to play outside a lot, but he could do it in a pinch. And then he showed last year against the Rams that he can play safety. So those are some things you like about Dante Johnson, that versatility. So I think Dante Johnson and Darqueze Denard, I think only one of them will make the roster. So if you're going with Dante Johnson, then Denard's not making the roster. If you're going with Denard, then Dante Johnson ain't making it, vice versa. So I think either way, one of those guys makes the team. Now the question is going to be, when it comes to Diameter Lenoir and Samuel Womack, I think they're in a real competition. And the fact both were fifth-round picks means they don't have one guy valued over the other guy. So we'll see what happens. But I think some really good football player is going to get cut. One of these cornerbacks are potentially going to play for another team or be on the practice squad. I think if I was going through this right now, I'm not as huge a fan as a lot of people are on Samuel Womack. But I think right now, because Womack is the rookie, potentially he has a chance to unseat Diameter Lenoir. So maybe they would go with Samuel Womack there, and then Darqueze Denard would potentially make it. But I'm going to go ahead and say that right now, my belief would be Ward, Mosley, Thomas, Barrett, Womack, Thomas, Womack, and I guess Denard. I'm going to go with them. I'm going to go with 6 guys. So that's what I would say. David Camel says, I would say that Dante Johnson is the only sure thing. We do know Dante Johnson is going to be affiliated with the 49ers in some way. He will either be on the 49ers 53-man roster or he will be hovering around the practice squad. The 49ers have consistently brought him back and brought him on. Yeah, exactly, Lou. Wow, too much talent at DB. Shocking. That's one of the flips and the changes from last year, where we went into the season where we had Verrett, we had Mosley, and then a tremendous amount of questions behind them. And it didn't feel, no 49er fan, I think, really felt comfortable with that situation of the 49ers, having those guys in the cornerback room. And so I think that right now, the Niners are sitting in a pretty good situation, and they're going to cut some really good football players, unfortunately. And I don't really like that they're going to be cutting some really good football players, but they are. So that's going to be an interesting room, and I don't think anyone has been wrong with who they're saying. We got a lot of people going back and forth between different people in chat saying they're going to make it, all the way from Lenore being cut to different guys being able to start. And I think that Mr. Corey is saying that Verrett is going to be gone potentially. We'll see. And then Lou says the Wards, Moore, and Verrett. Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty good. And Garish is saying defensive turnovers key on and third downs. Yeah, getting off the field on third down is definitely a key. We know that turnovers are big because they change the momentum of the game and they stop the offense dead in their tracks. But I think when it comes down to it, you also got to remember that it is about third down stops. Getting off the field on third down could be the most important thing. Every time that the 49ers held a opposing team, to a low third down conversion rate, they primarily won that game. So it's something to remember when it comes to the 49ers. Is getting off the field is definitely very important. So I'm excited about that potential because the flexibility that these defensive backs give you, these cornerbacks give you, the ability to go ahead and play a variety of different coverages. And that's one of the things that you're afforded if Verrett, Mosley, and Tarvarius Ward are your three cornerbacks. If those are the three guys and one of them's playing the nickel, then you can run zone, you can run man, you can do it all. You can switch zone, you can match zone, you can do whatever you want to do. All these guys can do everything that you ask as long as Verrett is healthy. If not, then you're going to have a little bit of a different question in the nickel. Is it going to be Darquez Denard? Will it be one of the young guys like Lenore or Womack? I don't know for sure. And that's one of the things you have to wait and see. If Verrett's healthy, I think it definitely unlocks the potential of this defensive back group, and it gives D'Amico Ryans a lot of ways to get after it. And Ronnie Montoya says, did we already talk about O'Neal? No, we haven't. We have not got to the safeties yet. So we will be getting there here pretty soon. Mr. Corey says, I say Verrett is gone because I don't think he's going to be healthy, not because a rookie or second-year guy beating him out. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if that's what it is and it's because of injury, then, he could be gone. And I'm really hoping he's going to be healthy. I'm a big fan of Jason Verrett and the way that he goes about business. And he's a guy that unfortunately has suffered way too many injuries, and it looked like he had finally got back. He got his footing underneath him. He played the entire 2020 season and was able to stay healthy. And then 2021 came, and it was supposed to be a breakout year. The reemergence of Jason Verrett, getting his career back on course, and then he suffers the injury in week 1 against Detroit. Absolutely unfortunate. So I'm really rooting for this guy to come back. And I think we all know a healthy Jason Verrett definitely helps the 49ers football team. So having him out there is very good for the 49ers. They need that. It's important. So hopefully Jason Verrett can be healthy. And now we're getting to the safety position. So safety position here, we got, this is from Eric Branch. We got Jimmy Ward. We got Talanoa Hufanga. We got Tarvarius Moore. We got George Odom. Those are the ones he went with. He went with the 4 names that everyone knows, cutting Leon O'Neal, the undrafted free agent that Ronnie was just asking about, and Taylor Hawkins, the undrafted free agent from San Diego State. So right there, he just kind of went status quo, right? He went with the guys that have the most information about, and the guys that are the most likely, all with NFL experience. We know Jimmy Ward's the mainstay, and he's going to be the guy that can get it done at the safety position with a lot of flexibility and versatility to play in the dime situations, covering receivers in the slot. And I think Jimmy Ward gives you a lot of opportunities because of his versatility. The things that he can do it all. He can play in man coverage. He can go man lock up a tight end. You can put him in the slot, and he can go compete with Cooper Kupp. Even if Kupp beats him, his coverage is right on. He's on that guy. So I think that Jimmy Ward is definitely somebody the Niners need on this football team, and he's a big reason why, even though the safety position, there's not a clear-cut starter opposite of him, you feel comfortable with the fact the safety position is going to do okay. And then you got Talanoa Hufanga. Talanoa Hufanga coming into his second year. The biggest questions surrounding Talanoa Hufanga is he ready to start? Is he ready to be that guy? And Mr. Corey says, outside of Jimmy Ward, the safety room stinks. Please resign Tart after Garoppolo gets traded. That's it. Talanoa Hufanga. I'm not going to say Talanoa Hufanga stinks, Mr. Corey. I don't think any of these guys stink, but I think there are some interesting things that go there. And then you said, Ant, was Warner a former safety? Yeah, he was. He played some safety at BYU. So that's true. And then with Talanoa Hufanga, it's all questions about his potential in the playing the deep third. Questions about him in coverage, because there were some spots and times where he was highlighted, where he looked a little bit like he struggled with what he was seeing and what he was doing. And so I worry about him in coverage a little bit now. That's one thing, is remembering what he was doing last year and what he'll do this year could be completely different. So I think Talanoa Hufanga could show rapid improvement. He could be one of those guys that's ready to step up and take over. But we'll see. And I've heard other people think it's going to be Hufanga. I think if the coverage thing gets figured out, it could be. He's got the physicality. He's got the ability to play in the box. The question, top end speed, not so sure about that. But we'll see what happens with Hufanga. The one thing I will say, also, even though he's good in the box, he's not as good in run fits right now as Jaquiski Tartt. Jaquiski Tartt's understanding of where he's supposed to be, being able to set the edge when it's asked of him, and be able to fill the holes that he's supposed to. He's fantastic at it, and that's one of the things that Talanoa Hufanga is going to be striving to do, is get better in that area. And if he can get better in the run fits, he's going to be hard to pull off the field in certain situations. So I think he can definitely make it so the 49ers want to have him on the field. And then chat's talking about Tarvarius Moore. Mr. Corey says Tarvarius Moore can't cover, Hufanga can't cover, Odom can't cover. So not very high on these guys as coverage guys. We do know Tarvarius Moore struggled a little bit in 2020 with coverage compared to Jaquiski Tartt. Tartt is a good football player, though. So the fact that he wasn't as good as him in his first year starting is understandable. Now, the question will be, though, we haven't seen Tarvarius Moore play in DeMeco Ryans' defense yet. We've seen Tarvarius Moore play for Robert Saleh and what Robert Saleh wanted to do in his more base cover 3 defense. But Tarvarius Moore and the versatility that he displays being used by DeMeco Ryans, we haven't got to witness. So that could be something to keep an eye on, and it could be exciting if he's able to go up into the box, able to cover these receivers in the slot as well. You might have a lot of versatility between him and Jimmy Ward. And at times in 2020, that versatility between the two, not knowing who was going to play deep, who was going to play up, the switching, which we see from Ward and Tartt now, is something they started kind of flirting with in 2020. So that could be something Tarvarius Moore brings to this defense. So I'm excited about seeing what he can do. And if he can improve those coverage skills, because they did try to move him to corner for a while, I think that he would be a nice option opposite of Jimmy Ward. But there's no guys that you're just dead set, for sure. So we'll see what happens there. And 49ers Fogey says O'Neal looks good on film. Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, when it's looking at O'Neal, O'Neal is one of those guys that, he has some stiff hips. Leon O'Neal is an absolute thumper. He can hit you. He likes to fill. He likes to come up and play in the box. He's a physical freak. I mean, he really is. He's got a lot of ability. My questions for him are coverage. Can he be able to flip his hips and run, with one of these big tight ends or one of these wide receivers in the league? I worry about that a little bit. So I think that's where Leon O'Neal is going to have to struggle a little bit to make this team. So we'll see. We'll see what Leon O'Neal does there. I don't dislike the player. I think that he's going to have to go out there and build it up. And in fact, I like Taylor Hawkins from San Diego State. I like the things that he does. In fact, I'm higher on Taylor Hawkins than I am on Leon O'Neal. And I may be the only one, and that's okay. From what I saw on film, Taylor Hawkins looks like a guy that can go out there and compete in this league. And I'm not saying he's going to make this roster, but I think he's going to go out there and impress some people. And I'm really hoping that he does, because I've seen the ability to play in the box and some of the ability to play, the deep half of the field, and he looked pretty good, and he's a good tackler. So we'll see if Taylor Hawkins can surprise anyone, in that area and make the safety room a little bit more complicated. Jay Ellie says, on this defense, what do you expect from strong safety position? Corey? I think from the strong safety position, I think that the way that the 49ers are trending right now, you're looking for a safety that can do similar things to what Jimmy Ward does. I think you're looking now for the way the league is going with all the wide receivers and all the skill players that tied in. The old days of the strong safety position per se need to somewhat go away, because that now they're tasked with so much more. The strong safety before used to, lay people out over the middle of the field, come up in the box and help against the run when you brought 8 guys in the box. Like, it was a different ask of those players. Now they're asking these guys to be able to go up and cover someone in the dime, or to go ahead and take away a tight end. There is a lot of things, these guys have to do. That is a little bit more complicated now. And I think that that's just a trend of the league. As the league continues to get more athletic, more skilled at these skilled positions, these safeties are going to have to get better as well. And they're having to develop coverage skills. That's why Jimmy Ward is one of these, new age safeties. And I think Tartt is doing that at a pretty high level. he's pretty good. So I like what Tart does, and I'm not against what Mr. Corey said earlier about bringing Tart back. I would love that for competition in this room, because you see we have those 4 guys right now, and then you have the 2 undrafted free agents in O'Neal and Hawkins. So potentially that's something. I do agree with Mr. Corey. Mr. Corey says if Tart isn't re-signed, Tarvarius Moore will start at strong safety with Hufanga mixing in. That's how I think it goes too. And I think if Tart isn't re-signed, that's how it is. Tarvarius Moore starts, and then you're going to see Hufanga mixing in and splitting some snaps with Moore, depending on what situation they're in and what offense you're going against. And I think that's kind of how the 49ers are going to handle that safety position this year. And then, of course, with George Odom, George Odom is a guy that plays well in the box again, but George Odom's calling card is special teams. He's a fantastic special teams player, just like Talanoa Hufanga. Those guys add so much in the special teams area that the 49ers had a concerted effort to improve their special teams room, and they did it. We talked about Oren Burks earlier at the linebacker position, of course, bringing back Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, both huge special teams players, but then also George Odom. And the 49ers are definitely making sure that third of the game is better than it has been in the recent years. And that's really going to help this team. And Garish says, when offense goes into max protection is where the 49ers struggle defensively. We can't rely on front 4 and need to find creative blitzing like corner blitz. Yeah, they often did. When they went max protect, they often did bring a nickel corner. But really what it comes down to is you're looking for situations, Grish, where you can catch them in good situations to bring a blitz where it's not going to be known. If you want to catch them in non-max protect situations, when they're in a max protect situation, it's not always the best to bring a blitz. Sometimes that's the best time to drop 8 and play coverage. That means they kept extra guys in. They don't have receivers to go out. Your 8 guys can absolutely blanket those 3 receivers or 2 receivers that are in routes. So when they max protect, it's not always the best time to bring blitz. Sometimes that's the time to play coverage. And that's one of the games that's going into it. That's the offensive coordinator versus defensive coordinator. You're trying to max protect when they bring a blitz, so that way you can take advantage of a big play down the field, because every time you blitz, you leave an area of the field weak where they can exploit. So you have to make sure you're doing it at the right times. Blitzes are dangerous. I do like the way that DeMeco Ryans does it. He's aggressive. He forces the hand. He dictates tempo. He dictates what the offensive coordinator is going to do. I love that, and I love that aggressiveness. But you have to make sure you're really smart about when you handle these blitzes. You bring the blitz off the wrong side, they're able to max protect and then get the ball downfield in a one-on-one situation, and you might find yourself giving up 6 points because you were trying to be overly aggressive. And I think DeMeco handles it very well. But understanding when guys are going to do stuff and tendencies of an offensive coordinator are very important. And a max protect situation is a great time to play coverage, because you can just sit there and I'm sorry, those 2 guys or 2 or 3 guys are not getting open against the 8 defensive backs you just dropped into coverage. Mr. Corey says maybe Moore will be better at strong safety than free safety. Yeah, I mean that could be. And he did play opposite of Jimmy Ward. If you go back to any of the 2020 season, you could see those 2 playing together, and there was some chemistry, and you could see the versatility that they're being used with. But Robert Saleh really didn't go into much of using those guys the way that DeMeco Ryans used Tart and Ward this year. Maybe they would go back to that, so we'll see. Ronnie Montoya says the front line will have quarterbacks on their back before they before the hike back in, guys. Yeah, I mean, I think in that's what you're hoping, right? That this front 4 can get after it. The thing is what the 49ers did was they saw that last year at times when they rushed 4 and the other team was able to max protect, there were situations in which they couldn't get the ball out of the quarterback's hand in time, and he had more time than enough to get rid of the football. So it has to be kind of a give and take. So what they did is went and got the back-end guys to go with it now. And that's what you're saying. It's good to go on the coverage. The back-end guys, Ronnie, are so much better, right? Tarvarius Ward, we saw the way that Mosley played last year. I mean, Mosley played fantastic last year. Didn't give up any touchdowns, had his best season overall. And now you're rolling that back in with Ward, who is a huge improvement. So now the back end can hold up. That's why the questions of the safety position are so interesting. Because if the safety position can hold up, then you're looking really good in that back end. And now that gives your defensive line even more time to get to the quarterback, which means more potential sacks. That's something more indicative of what you saw in 2011. That year, with Jim Harbaugh and that team, they had the front line to get after it. But when they didn't, that defensive backfield held up. Goldston, Hittner, those guys were really good. So That's what Carlos Rogers. I mean, they're really good, and they were able to hold it up. Paul says, you're right, Ant. D'Amico did a good job of disguising and choosing his times last year to blitz. Yeah, he does. And the way that he sets it up by disguising coverages and then overloading certain sides when you didn't see it coming, he'll show blitz to one side. And then late, it'll bail, and the blitz will come from the other side. I saw it a lot with Jimmy Ward, him coming all the way from the safety position and showing tremendously late. When you show late, it doesn't give the offensive line or the quarterback the opportunity to change protection. And then all of a sudden, here he comes, and the guy comes free. In the playoffs, there's one play in particular where they ended up blitzing 3, and I believe it was Greenlaw that got home. But they brought Ward, they brought K'Wan Williams. It was a fantastic move. And that's the thing, creative blitzes, these shell coverages that give these quarterbacks the confidence that they think they're seeing one thing and then it becomes something else is something he did a really good job at. Donald Johnson says Niners don't blitz like other teams. They like to get pressure with the front four, which they are good at. Yeah, exactly. That is true. And what's up, Tommy? Welcome to chat. They do like to get it with the front four if possible. Now, the one thing we did see was that D'Amico did it more than Robert Saleh. And I think that if you're dialing it up the right way, you can do that. And D'Amico's nature coming from that 3-4 defense, playing for some of the defensive coordinators he's played for, he likes to get after it and dictate, what is going to happen. He doesn't want you to always know what to expect, and that keeps offensive coordinators on their toes and off balance. And if you can do that, then you have the opportunity to get off the field. We saw early on in the season, he tried to go man coverage across the board. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. As he started struggling with the different cornerbacks as they got deeper and deeper into the group, then he knew he needed to play off a little bit more, and he didn't go to those man situations. So he's very smart and able to understand what his personnel can do, and then putting them in the right situations to be successful. That's what it is about being a coach, is putting your guys in the right situations to be successful and taking advantage of their skill sets. If you can do that, you can really do a good job in this league. But it's hard. It's hard for coaching, and these guys are really smart. All of them. All the coaches in the NFL are really good coaches. Donaldson says, Ant, the front four will be better this year as long as they stay healthy. I agree with that. You're going to have the understanding of what Eric Armstead is going to be doing on the inside already. And then you're going to have Javon Kinla, if he's healthy, being able to do the things that he can do. I mean, he's a big physical man, but he has legit pass rushing skills and techniques. He's a guy that's going to be a force on the interior. And I think that he's not going to play all 3 downs. I think there'll be times he does. But he's an absolute run stopper as well. And the fact is, you're going to create more 3rd and longs. And if you create more 3rd and longs, then this defense is going to be able to get after it on 3rd down. And you're going to be able to bring in a Kamoko Toure to rush off the outside and slide Ebicom in. Or, to bring in young rookie guys that can get it done like Drake Jackson. So there's going to be a lot of ability and a lot of opportunities for the 49ers to be able to get after. So, yeah, I like that. And then Paul says complementary football as it applies to different areas of our defense could be a blast this year. Complementary football is what it's all about. All 3 phases working together to win football games. And the 49ers have done a really good job of focusing on all 3 phases this year. And they went to try to improve all 3 phases, including special teams. And some of their signings weren't sexy. They weren't moves that people like too much, but they went out and got a Ray McLeod that can help as a return guy. They went out and got an Oren Burks that's going to be a great special teams player, or George Odom, or bringing back Flanagan Fouls. These were solid moves. And even some of the moves they made with undrafted free agents, you can see a little bit of the special teams and what they did. So it's a concerted effort to get better in all 3 areas. And if you do get better in all 3 areas, you would think you're going to win more football games. So I do really like that. Mr. Corey says, if Tart and Alex Mack return, this is a Super Bowl contender. If neither returns, I don't know. If they both return, you're right. I mean, what's up, Pemer? There is a good opportunity for this team. And, I know some of the talk today was things that Chris Forrester was saying about the Aaron Banks, talking about Aaron Banks and what he could be. So I think that right now the 49ers have a lot of ability on both sides of the ball. And you're right, though. If Tart and Alex Mack come back, you have a lot less questions. The Alex Mack one is huge. And I know this is a defensive episode, but Alex Mack coming back would definitely stabilize that offensive line. And I feel like the offensive line could not only end up making up for the guys that they've lost, but actually end up exceeding that. Because I think they have a lot of really good, talented players. But I think that all gets thrown into a state of flux in year 1 of this, new lineman room if Alex Mack isn't there, because then Daniel Brunskill moves. It just gets a little bit more complicated. Ronnie Montoya says, I just hope this year's defense tackles inbounds instead of letting teams offense stop the clock so much. That was a little bit interesting. A little bit interesting last year. Some of the things with Detroit, some of the way they were playing defense, letting guys get out of bounds. It wasn't the best, and you've seen a team and a defense that grew throughout the year. Whether it was DeMeco Ryans growing and understanding what he was doing, or the 49ers offense continually adjusting to make sure they try to keep their defense off the field. It was a concerted effort to work together. So were there things and learning experiences for a young defensive coordinator? Absolutely. Did DeMeco Ryans get so much better during the year? Yeah. And you know who else got better during the year? A lot of these defensive players. Samson Debucon got better during the year. Eric Armstead helped this interior defensive line get better during the year. I believe it's scary, but Nick Bosa got better. And then Azeez Al-Shire got better. Those things, Al-Shire being able to play, in Dre Greenlaw's spot when Greenlaw was out, he got all those key reps. I know he ended up getting hurt. But he played a lot of significant snaps and had to do a lot of things in coverage, not just playing, the run. And I think that's important. So I did think they got better in a lot of areas, and Ombre Thomas getting key reps is definitely important. So this defensive line got better throughout the year, including DeMeco Ryans. And I think DeMeco Ryans is just going to be almost unstoppable this year because he's going to have a firm understanding of what this his defensive personnel can do. And then now he's going to have an understanding of how offensive coordinators work. I'm sure he had a decent understanding already, but now he's going to have even a better understanding because he's won against, especially the guys in the NFC West, he's won against them before. Mr. Corey says, I'm excited for Banks more than Kinlaw this season. I'm excited for both. I will say that. And I know Banks, we have absolutely no idea what he can do. At least Kinlaw played in his rookie season, and we got to see his, some of his potential. With Banks, we didn't get to see him. I mean, he was learning. I love the positive things that are coming out about him. But I like that. So P. Mercer says I'm excited for more Kinlaw and Grant Cohn interactions. Yeah, I mean, I know they squashed that apparently, so they're working on that. I'm not going to really get into any of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to Kinlaw interacting with a lot of opposing offensive linemen. That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to him getting in there and taking advantage of some of these interior offensive linemen and pushing them back and walking them back into the quarterback. That's what I want from Kinlaw. I want a big season. I want him out there just gobbling up squirrels and getting it done. And I think he's got the potential to be something spectacular. And the fact that Armstead's going to be playing next to him means this is the best defensive player he's played next to. And that's going to be something big for Kinlaw. Playing next to Eric Armstead, he's going to see one-on-one situations. And when they do double team, he's got to hold the line. And if him and Armstead can hold the line against these double team situations, then they're going to be able to stop the run. So I'm really excited about the potential of those two guys on the interior and also the rotation you're going to have behind them. So the rotation behind him is going to be good as well with, Ridgeway and Givens and Maurice Hurst. It's exciting. I mean, that's one of the things about this defense and about the 49ers team overall is how exciting it is. We went over the offense already, and now the defense. And I think when you're looking at it, every single one of these positions, it's like there's a position battle. Now, there were some that were a little bit easier than others to figure out, including, the linebacker position. And David Green from Facebook says, I'm most excited about our defensive back depth. It's got me really excited for the season. Yeah, the cornerback room is spectacular. It really is. And I think that we had so many questions about corners last year. And now that that's been answered, I feel so good. The fact that we're going to have the defensive line that we're going to have, because, these guys are 12, 13 players deep. And then you have the back end to go with it now because Tarvarius Ward wasn't on this team last year. Tarvarius Ward is a very good football player. He's somebody you can line up on, the best player, and he can go get it done. So I'm excited about the potential of this secondary. And for sure, I love what you just said to David. I'm there with you. That's what gets me excited as well. Having the front line to go with that back end. Let's get after it. Anthony says, do you think Kinlaw is going to be suspended? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know if Kinlaw is going to be suspended. I'm sure that, everyone's aware of it. I'm sure, he's was talked to about the situation overall. And I'm sure that they're going to work on it, and that's one of the things the PR department will get with him and talk about, dealing with reporters and what, he should do in those situations before. It's a good learning experience for everyone that's involved. Everyone involved in this situation can learn something, including all of us that's seen it happen. And I think that that's one of the things you just take from it, and then you learn from it and you move on. So I don't know if he's going to be suspended. We'll see what happens if the league suspends him or the 49ers do. And if they do, then we'll move forward with, whatever those consequences are, if there are consequences. But there you go. And a lot of players are coming out in support of Kinlaw, and I don't think I've seen a lot of criticism on those players as far as backing up what Kinlaw did, but I don't think it's as much of what Kinlaw did and as much of what Kinlaw was trying to say. But that's all I'm not going to really go into that. I don't really like talking about all that stuff too much in this forum, because I like talking about the 49ers football, and that doesn't really affect on the field too much. If he gets suspended, then it'll affect on the field, and that's when we'll have the conversation. JLE says Kinlaw hate is strong out there. It could be, that's something that definitely could be going on. I went on to Twitter a little bit and saw some of it, and decided to just move on and get onto 49ers conversation, because that's what I'm excited about. Mr. Corey says Tarvarius Ward was one who picked off Brady in the AFC Championship game to send them to the Super Bowl until D Ford said nope. Yeah, and what's great, Mr. Corey, I don't know if you you probably didn't, but slightly offsides that I've been doing a show with Hurst. We did one episode so far, and I used the D Ford call in there. They told me I was lined up offsides. Was I? I used that in it. It's one of those. I feel for D Ford in that situation. That's tough, because that game was over. Kansas City was going to the Super Bowl, and then Tom Brady again. David Green says there was mistakes on both sides. No one should get on any trouble, though. Okay, there you go. Hey, you know what? And I have no problem with that. Let's see. Donald Johnson says JL, the only player I think Grant likes is Ross. Don't know. I don't know that for sure. P. Mercer says Tarvarius Ward is going to be a beast. Yeah, I like that. So, I mean, like I said, you guys can fill up chat with what your feelings are about the Kinlaw Grant situation. Go ahead and do that. You guys want to have that conversation, that's fine. But I'm not going to talk about that situation anymore, because I just want to talk about the 49ers football team. You know what I mean? And to me, that's kind of something that happened between two adults that doesn't really have an effect on the team unless Kinlaw gets suspended. And then I will have, a conversation about it. But right now in this forum, I'm not going to go into that. But I'm excited about Javon Kinlaw's potential to play for the 49ers this year, and what he could do on that defensive line. And I think as a player, he could be a good football player for them. And I want to see him do a really good job. I want to see him go in there and have a really big season. And with the defensive line the 49ers have, there's definitely that potential to do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple more questions, and then I'm going to get out of here. I've had a really good conversation with all of you talking about the 49ers 53-man roster on defense. And tomorrow we're going to get into the 49ers news, what's been going on. There's potentially some stuff going around about Alex Mack. There's some stuff going on about, what the offensive lines look like at OTAs. We can have a conversation about that. So that'll be exciting. And Twisted Clown says, don't worry, Ant, we ain't testing you with these linebackers. I know, you guys are just having a conversation, and that's fine, Twisted Clown. I really don't mind. You guys can talk about it, and that's okay. And opinions aside, I'm just a football guy. I just love talking about that. But I get it. I know what's going on in 49ers land. It's been a big deal, right now. And but I appreciate you going ahead and saying that. And Tommy says Brandon Ayuk is going to have 1,500 yards. If Brandon Ayuk has 1,500 yards, wow, he's on the scene. And then how are the 49ers going to pay him? And then the conversation really gets going, right? Because if they pay Deebo Samuel, wow. Yeah, I don't know. And Anthony says, with the new big running backs, do you think that the running game is going to be like the 2012 Harbaugh running game? I think to a point. I understand what you're saying, the physicality, being able to bring it, with Frank Gore and that aggressive running style, that is a point that could happen. The one element that's a little bit different between it, number one, Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, ran a different style of offense. But number two, Colin Kaepernick was spectacular with the ball in his hands, running the read option so much out of the pistol at Nevada. He definitely brought that part of the game to the NFL. And I think that's a little bit different from what you saw from Trey Lance. I don't think Trey Lance is a Colin Kaepernick kind of runner in the run game. I think he's more of a quarterback as far as all well-rounded. So being able to get the ball out, I like it. So I think that there could be some elements of that 2012 run game. I do think the 49ers are putting forth an effort to be a power run team. I think that's what they're going to do with these big running backs. And they run a lot of gap schemes, so it makes a lot of sense. And then Ronnie says, who's your dark horse underrated guy to make the D team? I think, that's a good question. I'm going to kind of look at this a little bit. A dark horse to make it. Well, we know that if Kalia Davis is cleared, he potentially can make this team. If he doesn't start on the PUP list, I think that is one for sure. And then as far as the cornerback position, let's see if there's anyone there. I mean, Tariq Castro-Fields could potentially make it, even though I don't see it. I don't know. I mean, dark horse to make it. I don't think there's a dark horse to make the defensive side of the football. I really don't. I think this is pretty clear, minus Kalia Davis. Kalia Davis is the guy, so maybe that happens. Let's see. Mr. Corey says, who are you most excited for on defense this season, Ebicom or Azeez Al-Shire for me? I'm excited for a few players, but I'm excited to see the secondary with Tarvarius Ward. I know Tarvarius Ward is a really good football player, but him playing in Kansas City, I didn't see like a ton of his games. I did watch a little bit of it, but I'm excited to see what this 49ers defense is going to look like with Ward being able to potentially lock down one side of the football. If he can, and they can give safety help over the top on the other side if they need to, which with Emmanuel Mosley, you don't always have to. I'm kind of excited for that. And he said, who is comparing Cap to Lance? I don't think anyone was doing it. I was more so giving JLE my opinion on the 2012 offense that was led by Colin Kaepernick and that run game, because we were talking about the run game of 2012 compared to this one. And I was just talking about Cap to Lance as far as running style is different. So I don't think they're going to employ that similar run game because Kaepernick was so important for that 2012 run, whether it was LaMichael James or it was Frank Gore, they had to worry about Cap running the ball. So I'm just making that comparison only for that mere fact, because a lot of times people see Lance as a running quarterback, and I'm kind of not seeing that then. So that's what I'm going with. Who is the most underrated linebacker named in general? On the list currently for the linebackers, I think it's got to be Jeremiah Gamel, the undrafted guy, because the other guys are pretty well known, right? I think Oren Burks is going to be able to make this team and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, but Jeremiah Gamel is probably the guy that no one really knows about. So we'll see. And I think that with the linebacker room, those five guys are pretty clear. But if there's an injury, then the question is who makes this team, because Curtis Robinson could also make this team as a fifth linebacker. Let's see what we got going here. Lou says, and do you think Kinla rushed from the nose? Yeah, I think he can. I saw him, play the nose tackle position in South Carolina. It didn't look like his most natural position. It's a position that you wanted to see him, be able to move to the 3-tech, and the 49ers did move him to the 3-tech initially, but now he's going to go back to the nose tackle position. Can he do that? Yeah, he can. So Mr. Corey says, you missed the KC Dallas game, Matt? Ward blanketed CeeDee Lamb. I probably didn't watch that game, to be honest, Mr. Corey. I probably didn't. There's a lot of times there's a lot of times that I'm doing stuff for the podcast, so if it's a game that happens after a 49er game, I won't be able to. There was other things I was recording, so yeah, potentially I do miss some of those football games. I have to go back and watch them. If Dallas is playing, it's not always the game I really want to watch, to be honest. I don't get excited about Dallas games, but I'll go back and watch that game just to watch Ward blanket CeeDee Lamb. I think that would be excited to watch. Donald's calling Paul a snitch. It's all good. It's all good. You guys, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, I made the comparison. I'm not really worried about it. I wasn't mainly comparing that I think they're similar players, but only that their running styles are different. So if you're talking about the 2012 run game looking like the current one, it's not going to, because of Colin Kaepernick. Do I think that Trey Lance is going to freeze defensive players similarly? Yes, I do. And I think that's going to open some cool holes. And with these big running backs, they're going to be able to break arm tackles early on and then be able to get some yardage. So that is definitely something I'm excited about seeing. And Mr. Corey says, Ward picked off Dak Prescott in the end zone covering CeeDee Lamb. I like that. I really do. I like that. I like that a lot, in fact. So that'll be something I'll go back and check out. I'll go back and check out this game, and Paul's having a good laugh. Yeah, it's a lot of fun in chat right now. Everyone's having a good time. And I've had a really good time with this episode. So hopefully everyone will join me tomorrow. It's going to be a Q&A, so you can bring all your questions, and we'll have a nice conversation. We're getting into some of the news, be talking about some of the things that have been going on. And then, of course, you're going to want to catch this weekend Slightly Offsides. We're going to have a nice conversation. Me and Horst are going to be talking about some of the things that are going on, and maybe we will talk a little bit about the Kinlaw thing. but that's going to be over on Patreon, and maybe I'll throw it over there for channel members as well, so you guys can see episode 2 of Slightly Offsides. It's going to be a fun one. I'm looking forward to get into it, but I'm really looking forward to tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Come through, join me. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks everyone for coming through and leaving a lot of really, really cool chats and asking a lot of good questions. I've enjoyed the conversation over the last 2 days. If we've talked about the players that could potentially make this 53-man roster, and I think the one thing we can agree on is that the 49ers have a very, very talented 90-man roster, and Jason Butler coming through at the end with, remember the name Leon O'Neal Jr. I like that, and I'm looking forward to seeing Leon O'Neal Jr. at training camp. I'm excited to see what he can do. So I'll definitely keep a lookout for him, and we'll see what he can do. But that's what it's about. If you're on this 90-man roster, you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to make the team, and that's all you're really looking for. So that concludes the 53-man roster conversation for this week. Unless you have questions tomorrow, on the Q&A show, go ahead and do that. But I hope everyone stays safe, and remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.